the Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings. I am Admiral Swart, Commanding Officer of the USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for stardate -250107.1. I am the Admiral in question, and today we're going to be looking at the topic of mission readiness again, but this time specifically looking at the aspect of it that relates to making physical progress. Before we get into the topic, I'd like to just mention a couple of things. First of all, I apologize for my appearance. Usually I prefer to be dressed in the proper uniform for this kind of event, which is the standard duty uniform, Class B. But practicality has trumped professionalism today. Over the last few days, Cape Town has been experiencing something of a heat wave, although it's a little bit cooler today. It's still a warm day. What that means is that this building is exposed to copious amounts of incoming solar radiation and then heats up. That heat then is dissipated through blackbody radiation internally, effectively turning this room into an oven. Now, I normally have a neat ventilation system which channels a passage of air directly past me, which keeps things nice and comfortable in this room. However, half of that system has died a couple of days ago. The other half is doing its best to compensate, but it's not really managing very well. So it feels like it's about 1 million kelvins in here right now. So instead of sitting here sweating and passing out on live stream, I decided to rather opt for a lighter, cooler uniform, the Class C. I trust you will forgive my indiscretion, and I will do my best to return to proper formality next time. Next, we record these sessions every Tuesday at about 12:30 South African Standard Time. If you're an active duty member of the Dauntless crew, you can join us live in Discord to participate in the chat. You can ask me questions, and you can log mission attendance. Everyone else is welcome to watch the live stream on YouTube, or if you can watch it back later on either YouTube or on Facebook, if you like, if you're unable to attend the live event. If you have a question or a comment, if you're on the Discord, please make sure that you @tag me in your question or comment so that when I get to the Q&A section at the end, I can scroll back up through the chat and find your comment. There tends to be a lot of lively conversation in the chat, and most of those comments are not directed at me. So to save me having to wade through everybody else's commentary and conversation, although I enjoy doing that after the fact, live on air is not the time to do that. Please make sure that you @tag me in a comment that you need me to see. Then I can see that at the end. If you're watching this after the fact, please feel free to drop a comment either on YouTube or Facebook, or you can contact me directly via either of those channels, or Discord or Telegram or smoke signals, or however you prefer, with any questions or comments you may have. I'll do my best to address your comment there and then, but also I might use that in an upcoming video, which would be beneficial for everybody. Carrier pigeon, yes, you're welcome to use carrier pigeon if you like. Who are we? The USS Dauntless is a future-focused action and advocacy group that is, at its core, a Star Trek fan club. The Dauntless is a chapter of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association Incorporated, which is the largest Star Trek fan-run organization in the world. The organization uses the metaphor of a starship to organize its structure and specifically its chapters. So every chapter of Starfleet International, or SFI, every chapter of SFI is a starship, but that is metaphorical. It's not an actual starship. Instead, it's a community of like-minded people who promote Star Trek both as a form of entertainment and a vision for the future, while taking action towards that future. The Dauntless's mission is to promote the values and philosophy of Star Trek, providing a space for fans to connect and engage in activities that promote those values. The Dauntless is based in Cape Town, South Africa, but we have crew members around the world. So getting on to today's topic, we're going to talk about mission readiness. I've done a bunch of these videos before about mission readiness in general, so let me just recap about what we mean by that. So we use the concept of mission readiness to encourage personal development encompassing mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Physical readiness involves exercise, diet, and healthy habits, while mental readiness is achieved through education and skill development. Emotional readiness focuses on building fortitude and self-reliance. And we emphasize Star Trek values like courage, determination, truth, integrity, compassion, and excellence as a framework for that personal growth. Members are expected to maintain professional appearance and conduct despite my lapse in professionalism today, following protocols and being respectful. The goal is for members to become the best version of themselves, embodying Starfleet ideals. And we're going to be focusing on physical readiness today, once again, as we have done in the past, but we're going to be dealing with a specific aspect of it today. But physical readiness, again, deals with things like physical health, fitness, and nutrition and that kind of thing. But it's not just about looking good, although looking good is part of it. We want to look as good as possible for a number of important social reasons. But it's also about increasing your capacity, making you more capable, physically capable of doing things, moving faster, carrying heavy things, because the more capable you are, the more things you can do, the more able you are to make a contribution to our various missions, both dauntless missions and just when you're out in the world. The greater your level of capability, the better off you are. And the better off everybody around you is, because you have an increased capacity for affecting things in the world. So physical fitness ties into our values of courage and determination, mainly because those are the two values that are needed in order to obtain and maintain physical fitness. You need a certain measure of courage to get yourself going to begin with, and then at a certain point, courage drops off, and that is then replaced by determination, that will and that fortitude to keep on doing the thing that needs doing over and over again in order to build up that physical capability. And that is also a demonstration to the people around you that you have integrity, which is another important value of the Dauntless. And it is an exhibition and a practice of personal excellence, showing everybody around you that you are working to be the best possible version of yourself. So those are the values that relate specifically to the physical aspect of mission readiness. But one of the important things about those three legs of mission readiness, physical, mental, and emotional, is that although we think about them as being separate and distinct, they are not. They're actually all just one thing. They're just three different ways of thinking about that one thing. So we can't talk about physical readiness without also considering the mental side of it. And I would argue that physical fitness starts in the brain. You can't do the rest of it without getting your head right first. And I think the first thing you need to sort out when you're considering embarking on a physical fitness program is, how do you get yourself to do it? Now, there are two main ways that you would do that. How do you persuade yourself to engage in a physical fitness program? And those things are the reason for training, and the other one is your motivation for training. And those sound like they're the same thing, but they're actually not. The reason for training is, well, there are many reasons for training. If you're simply doing it to adhere to mission readiness ideals, then that's great. But it's also about becoming stronger, becoming more capable, becoming fitter, becoming healthier, increasing your longevity, increasing your health span. So health span is an idea that a lot of physicians talk about now. You've got your lifespan, which is how long you will live, and health span determines how much of that lifespan will be spent in a healthy state. So if you are 65 years old and you confined to a wheelchair because you're completely immobile because you've lost all your muscle mass, you might still be alive. Your lifespan continues, but you have lost your health. Your health span has come to an end. So there are things that you can do here and now, no matter what age you are, but you can begin doing things today that can help to increase your health span. So you can live well into your 80s or even 90s and still be physically capable of doing the things that you want to do with your life. Health span is just as important, if not more important, than lifespan. So that's a good reason for training. But that can be difficult to use as a source of mental motivation. Thinking about something that might be years or decades away can be difficult to motivate yourself, especially if you are disconnected with that experience. Especially if you're young and healthy now, it may be difficult to imagine what it might be like 40 years from now when you're not so young and you're not so healthy. So I think that this is where motivation comes in. So finding a way to get yourself to the gym. Another way of describing motivation might be inspiration. What is inspiring you to get out of your bed, to get into your gym clothes, to down that protein shake and getting to the gym? And there are conflicting opinions on this. Some people will argue that training should be based on commitment, not just on feeling inspired. And the purist in me wants to agree with that. Ideally, that should be the case. And I would also say that that probably becomes the case as you go along. The longer you engage in a physical fitness routine, you will eventually start to replace that inspiration, that motivation with reason, and you're just doing it because it's important. But to get yourself through those first few days, weeks, or months of an exercise program, especially if you're someone like me who does not enjoy exercise, that you need an extra kick, you need an extra push. And for that, you need to search through yourself and figure out what it is that you find inspiring or motivating. So for me, I started my serious fitness journey 8 or 9 years ago. And the thing that got me into the gym then was cosplay. So I had recently, I'd always had a mild interest in cosplay as a hobby, but I'd started getting into it fairly seriously. And I realized that a lot of the characters that I was interested in cosplaying as were commonly appearing in a semi-naked state of undress, shirtless for the most part. But my physique at the time was not suitable for that kind of activity. Now, I know a lot of people, especially in the cosplay community, will say that doesn't matter, it's not important. But in terms of my own comfort with being semi-naked in public, I was not comfortable with appearing so with my physique as it was then. So I began to undertake a serious campaign to improve my physicality such that I could feel more comfortable with going out in public without a shirt on. And I can share those photos with you later if you like. You're welcome to ask me for them. I'm no longer interested in cosplay. I've moved on from that. Probably. I may dabble in it again at some point in the future, but as of now, it's not something that I spend any time on. But I did enjoy doing that for a while, and for a while, it was a very useful tool in getting me into the gym. To knowing that if I wanted to go out dressed like a Jason Momoa character and not embarrass myself, I needed to lose some weight. I needed to gain some muscle mass, and that was important. But using that motivation consistently over time, over months or years, I was eventually able to forget about that motivation, and I was able to replace it more with the reason. I was starting to recognize how much healthier I was. My 2 chronic illnesses had now become under control. I was managing them entirely through exercise. I no longer needed any kind of medical intervention. I was stronger, I was healthier, I was more capable of doing things in the world, and that then became my reason, and my motivation was simply doing it because it was better for me than otherwise. I no longer needed to worry about going out in public shirtless, although I still do that occasionally. It's not really in the context of cosplay. That was no longer my motivation. My motivation and my reason kind of became aligned, and that's where we are today. But especially at the beginning, I would argue that motivation is probably more important than reason, simply because it's difficult to pile up your emotional weight behind a reason, but it's easy to do that behind an inspiration or behind a motivation. In other words, I would argue that whatever works, whatever it is that gets you to the gym, that's the thing that you can use. So whether that's motivation or reason, whichever one is better for you, use that one. Which brings me to sort of the neural architecture of motivation, and that relates to a brain area called the anterior cingulate cortex, which is a region of the brain. It's located in the frontal part of the cingulate cortex, which wraps around the corpus callosum, which is the part of the brain that links the 2 hemispheres. And it plays a crucial role in decision-making, in emotional regulation, and in impulse control. And most relevant to today's topic, in motivating action despite discomfort. In other words, it motivates you to do things that you don't actually want to do. It's the part of the brain that is engaged when you're forcing yourself to do something that you don't really want to do. So the key functions of the anterior cingulate cortex are that it is in conflict monitoring and error detection. So if it's noticing an error in your thinking or a mismatch in your motivations, then it helps to sort out those kinds of conflicts. It also helps to detect when there's a mismatch between what you want to do and what you should do. So you know that you want to eat that cookie, but you shouldn't eat that cookie. When you're in that state, it's the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, that comes online and helps you to navigate that difficulty and figure out how you should resolve it one way or another. Or if you want to stay in bed, but you should go to the gym, the ACC recognizes the conflict and helps you to resolve it. It also helps to motivate effortful action. So the ACC plays a key role in effort-based decision-making, essentially pushing you to do hard things even when they feel unpleasant. Basically doing the things you don't want to do. It evaluates whether an action is worth the effort, and it helps to initiate it despite the discomfort. Because this is why some people can push through fatigue, through physical pain or discomfort, or even through boredom during training in the gym, for example, while others struggle. People will get bored, they get tired, and they give up and go home. But some people are able to just keep on taking. It's because that they have a better trained ACC, anterior cingulate cortex. And better trained, that's a key point. We're going to get to that in a moment. It's also involved in pain perception and endurance. So it processes both physical and emotional pain, and it helps to regulate the perception of discomfort, allowing you to persist through challenges like an intense workout or a tough life situation. It helps you to suppress negative emotions. So it regulates emotions like frustration or anxiety or self-doubt, and works with the prefrontal cortex to override those emotional impulses and maintain focus on your long-term goals. So if you have a properly trained ACC, that is when your reason for training starts to kick in and your inspiration for training can start falling away. But getting that trained, that's the key. So the ACC is part of your brain that helps you to train even when you don't feel like it. And strengthening the ACC through habit formation and discipline makes it easier to stay committed to your fitness goal. So strengthening the ACC is an important aspect here. There is a thing called neuroplasticity, in which your brain is able to change its shape over time. Some parts of the brain are more plastic than others, and the ACC is one of the more plastic regions in the human brain, which is to say that you can train it like a muscle. The more that you force yourself to do things that are uncomfortable but good for you, the better you become at forcing yourself to do things that are uncomfortable but good for you. The more discipline you exercise in the short term, the easier it will be for you to access that discipline down the line. You can force yourself to do things that are increasingly uncomfortable because you've trained yourself to doing so. The ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, actually gets bigger inside your head and allows you to process more of that information and do so more decisively and more quickly. So you can physically strengthen the ACC like you're building a muscle. So training is an opportunity to improve your mental toughness, forcing yourself to go to the gym. You're making yourself more mentally tough, and not just your physical strength, although the physical strength is obviously an important aspect of it. Because every time you push past your discomfort, your anterior cingulate cortex gets that much stronger. So here's some practical ways that you can strengthen your ACC. So you consistently do hard things. The more often you override discomfort, the easier it becomes. Try and throw obstacles in your own way. I think gaming is probably a good way of helping you with this. If you're playing games that are difficult, you're not just playing in story mode for fun. You're increasing the difficulty level and making it more challenging for yourself. You're forcing yourself to do things that are more difficult, even though you know that they're difficult. There's an inherent mismatch in what you want to do versus what you should do, and forcing yourself to resolve that helps to strengthen your ACC. But also just in regular day-to-day situations. You're going to the mall, park far away from the entrance instead of right next to it, forcing yourself to walk those extra steps to get into the door. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel right. You're not being very efficient, but forcing yourself to do the uncomfortable thing is what's going to help you to strengthen your ACC. Would also help to set clear goals. So the ACC works better when there's a defined reason for the effort. So having a nebulous idea of I just want to look better or I just want to be stronger is not the optimal way of accessing that increased motivation from your strengthening ACC. If you can clearly define your goals, you can say that I want my weight to be like this. I want to be able to bench press this amount. I want to be able to run a 5K in this amount of time. That clear crystal goal, having that clarity of thought, will allow you to focus your efforts and strengthen your motivation using your anterior cingulate cortex. Pardon me, I need a sip of my beverage. There we go. Some people might find it useful also to practice mindfulness and self-reflection, which is a practice of becoming aware of your own mental resistance that helps you push through it. So if you can be cognizant of the fact that a particular task that you want to do is uncomfortable for you, emotionally uncomfortable for you, and you don't want to do it, just that awareness can help you to force that to be processed through your ACC, allowing you to overcome that resistance and then do the thing that you know you need to do. This can be any kind of task. Again, it can be having to submit a particular report at work or something like that. The more you do that, the more you strengthen your ACC, the easier it will be to access that discipline in the future. Another hack is to reduce decision fatigue. So you can automate good habits so that anterior cingulate cortex doesn't have to battle every time. So this is something that I've found to be very, very useful. At first, it doesn't really help you that much in getting to the gym, but once you have established a routine of getting to the gym on a regular basis, that routine itself then becomes a way of smoothing things over for the ACC. It's no longer a decision every day of, oh, do I go to the gym or not? You're just going. It's in your calendar. When it comes to that time of day, you get in your car, you go to the gym. It's just part of the thing. You don't have to decide to go to the gym or not. So your ACC doesn't have to be engaged. You just go because that's the thing that you do when it's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday or whatever it might be. Another issue when it comes to the mental side of physical readiness is the risk of complacency. So complacency means when you have reached a certain point of activity and now you feel like, oh, okay, I've done this, I'm doing this thing now, that's all I need to do. And that feels like it's enough. And when people say that doing some physical training is better than doing none, that is true. But if you're not constantly working to expand your capabilities and push your horizons and make yourself even stronger, you are going to settle into a pattern of complacency, which has some downsides. So when you're talking about physical training, that complacency, that stagnation, it actually leads to regression. So stagnation isn't just standing still, it's a slow decline. If you stop challenging yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, your abilities begin to fade due to the principle of reversibility, which is a standard biological principle, which means that if you either use it or you lose it. You develop an ability, you go into hypertrophy, you help to build it, you make it stronger. If you fail to use that, you fail to challenge yourself in that way, it goes into atrophy, and then you lose your capability to do that thing. So you've got, for example, physical decline. So strength, endurance, and coordination, so neurological activity, degrade without consistent training. You have to keep on training to keep yourself stronger and keep pushing your boundaries to get even stronger still. Your mental and emotional weakness will start to set in. Avoiding challenges lowers resilience and willpower, making once easy tasks difficult. Now, this seemingly conflicts with what I said earlier about reducing decision fatigue. So when you are taking things out of the realm of your anterior cingulate cortex and so that you no longer have to decide to go to the gym or not, you're simply doing it, that shouldn't be a signal to stop engaging your ACC on challenging tasks. What that means is that your ACC's resilience is now opened up. Its capacity is now opened up and freed up to take on even greater tasks, even more difficult things to do. So now you've got those things on farm, you can automate those activities and you can start reaching up and challenging yourself with even more difficult things. So mental and emotional weakness is a risk when it comes to complacency. You also will find a loss of self-identity. So if you stop progressing, you may stop seeing yourself as disciplined or capable, leading to further decline. So it's very easy when you start making progress in a physical discipline, you start noticing your gains, you notice how much better things are going, and you can start to take that on board to your self-identity, your personality. You start to recognize, oh, wait, I'm a disciplined person. I'm a strong person. I'm capable of doing this thing. But if you don't continually challenge yourself and you start to lose those gains, that's going to reverse that positive direction that your self-identity has taken. And you don't want that to happen. You can also fall behind in a moving world. So the environment and others around you continue improving. And if you don't keep up, you will regress by comparison relative to other people. So you're at a park run, for example, and you know there's that one guy who's runs at about the same amount of time that you do. So you know that as long as you're watching the back of him, you're going to be able to finish that park run in roughly the same time. Except that guy, he gets a little bit faster every week because he's not only walking at park run, he's also doing a couple of 2K walks during the week. So he's pushing himself and he's getting a little bit faster every week. And sooner or later, you won't be able to see him anymore because he has outpaced you and you have actually lost ground in comparison to his performance. Now, that's not to say we should be comparing ourselves to other people. But one of the things I enjoy about parkrun specifically is that it allows us to measure our own performance based on the performance of the people around us. I'm not doing an explicit comparison me against that guy, but I can use that guy's performance and his physicality as a yardstick to measure my own. So what we can do by way of prevention is we can stay in motion. And when I say stay in motion, I don't just mean holding pattern, keep on doing what we're doing. Staying in motion means making progress, moving forward, doing more things, doing harder things, improving our speed, improving our performance, improving our strength. And even if that progress is small, like let's manage our expectations here. Let's not shoot for the moon and set goals that are reasonable and attainable, but those goals should still be further from where you are now. And you can also work to manage your social circle such that you are surrounding yourself with people who help to motivate you to push forward. If you're not improving, you're losing ground. So the importance of structured progression and accountability means that structured progression and accountability are the backbone of sustained growth. Without a clear plan, progress becomes inconsistent, and without accountability, motivation fades. So accountability is quite an important issue, and it's probably something we should do a separate briefing on at some point. But accountability is accountability to yourself and accountability to the people around you. And this is a useful tool that a lot of people use in order to motivate themselves. So again, motivate, not a reason, to motivate themselves to get involved in a physical training program. And that is to have a workout buddy or a workout crew, people that you work out with together, because you are then socially accountable to those people. If you get up in the morning and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym today, your work buddy is texting you saying, hey, no, come, let's go. We're going to be there. And you can provide that same service for your workout buddy when the time comes. So that mutual accountability helps you to motivate you to get you to the gym. But there is, in the longer term, there's an accountability to yourself. You owe yourself the promise that you've made to continue making progress, to continue improving yourself, to become that better version of yourself, so that you can have that longer health span long term, and also the benefits in the short term. A structured approach is quite important when it comes to a physical training regimen. Just kind of throwing things around or just doing whatever feels right in the moment is better than nothing. But it's only going to get you so far, and you're going to start seeing diminishing returns. So if you have a structured approach that not only regulates the work that you're doing now, but provides a clear upgrade plan for where you're going to be going in the future, that will help you to be accountable to yourself and to the people that you share that plan with. Yes, there you go. So success isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. So it's not about what you can do today, it's about doing the same thing tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, forever, basically, because this is not a program that ever ends. It's something we have to keep on doing every day for the whole of our lives. So where do we start? So the key is to start small, something that's manageable, but you have to start somewhere. I think that parkrun is a great place to start a fitness journey. So if you're starting from scratch, you're doing nothing at all, parkrun is good. What is parkrun? Parkrun is a free timed 5K run/walk that happens in hundreds of parks around the world every Saturday morning at 0800. If you're in South Africa, which most of us are, there is a parkrun within half an hour's drive of where you are right now. And a lot of Western countries have parkrun too. All you need to do is sign up on the website, parkrun.com or parkrun.co.za, either one works. For a free account, you will be issued a barcode, and you must bring the barcode with you on the day. You preferably have it on a printed card, or you can get these cool sort of silicone bands you can wear around your wrist. But if you don't have the resources to print or acquire one of those, you can simply display it on your phone screen. That is adequate. What you do is you arrive at the location on time on a Saturday morning, and all of the people there who are there for the park run will begin running at 0800 sharp, and you will run your 5 kilometer route. And at the end, your time is taken so that you can track your performance over time. It's structured like a race, but it's not a race. You're not racing against the other people there. You're racing against yourself. You're measuring your own performance against where you performed last week. There's also a statistical framework that allows you to measure your performance against people in general, in your age group, in your gender, in your performance bracket, that kind of thing, so that you can sort of break down the statistics of your performance over time. But really, it is they don't brand it as a race. They brand it as a timed event. You are competing against yourself, who you were last week and the week before and the week before that. The reason why I say it's a great way to start, first of all, it's free. All of Parkrun is free. There are some cool, there's some merch and stuff that you can buy if you want, but you don't have to pay anything to participate. You just have to be there, scan your barcode when you're finished, and you're good to go, and they'll email you the thing for free. It's also social. I've never been to a parkrun that had less than 100 or so runners, except in the middle of winter when it's raining. But that, who counts that? There's usually a lot of other people at a given parkrun, some of whom are volunteers. Most of them are just there to run. And when I say run, that's run in quotes. Most of the people who are at parkrun are not running at all. They're just walking. You can do that 5K in whatever pace is comfortable for you. I think the marshals probably will start packing up at about 9:15. So if you're taking longer than an hour and 15 minutes to complete your run, maybe parkrun is a little too advanced for you. But most people should be able to walk a 5K in an hour or less, just about any fitness level. So you start off by walking, and then you push yourself to get faster and faster. It's also great because there is a social environment. As I mentioned, there are dozens or hundreds of other people at any given parkrun. So there are a lot of other people there who are not judging you. They are performing, some of them just as well, as slowly or just as fast as you. You're never the last one in, because there's always at least the tail walker who's walking in behind you. It's a very supportive and social environment, and I think it's a great place to start. But it's a start, and you kind of need to take it further than that. The gym is a great place to go, depending on what your needs are. Training at home is also a great option. We'll go into more detail about different training programs in a moment. But the important thing, especially at the beginning, is to focus on consistency. So going to parkrun is great. Going twice is also great. Going 3 times is also great, but you have to keep going. You have to keep doing it every week, week after week. And that is where you start to see the value. Once you're locked into that routine, you're no longer engaging your anterior cingulate cortex to force you to go to parkrun. It's just a thing that you do every Saturday. Then you can start looking to expand your physical challenges and adding more things to your routine. But parkrun is a great place to start. I mean, there are other places that are good to start too, but parkrun is a good one. And another important thing to remember is setting realistic and measurable goals. So this is another reason that I think the parkrun is great, because the goal is measurable, and the goal is improving your time. So the faster you do your 5K, the better you're performing. And if you're measuring your 5K week after week, you can measure your performance and your performance improvement consistently. Now, when I say the goals are realistic, you're not going to see an improvement every single week. You might for the first few weeks, but you're going to notice very soon that progress is not linear. It's not only moving in one direction. You're going to find occasions where you get a personal best 3 weeks in a row, and then you lose 5 minutes for whatever the following week, because you got a cold or you hurt your knee or whatever. It's always 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. But as long as you're on average moving in the right direction, then you're doing the right thing. If you notice that your performance is deteriorating over time, then you've got a serious problem and you need to rethink your strategy. So setting realistic and measurable goals. Measurability is important because that helps you with your conflict resolution with your anterior cingulate cortex, and realistic because you're managing your expectations. You're not going to go from a 55-minute 5K to a 16-minute 5K in 2 weeks. That's physically impossible. But you can go from a 55-minute to a 52-minute to a 49-minute and so on over the period of 6 months to a year. So measurable and realistic goals. But that takes us to the next aspect, which is choosing an optimal training profile. Now, I argue that as Starfleet officers, an optimal training profile has 3 primary legs. You've got cardiovascular, which helps to improve your heart and lung health, helps you to run. That's where park run comes in. If you're able to sustain physical activity over time, that's cardiovascular health. It includes resistance training because that helps to make you stronger, physically stronger, so you can lift things. Functional training, which is training in a way in which you're learning to do a physical thing in the world. Now, I recommend martial arts as the preferred method of functional training, but there are other options available, things like yoga, ballroom dancing, all kinds of other things are viable options for functional training. And then I would add a fourth sort of in brackets leg to that, which I would call targeted training. Targeted training is when you are focusing on a particular area of your physicality which you know is a problem. What do I mean by that? So for me, I have very tight hamstrings. That's an issue I've had my whole life. It comes from being very tall. So I have limited flexibility in my pelvic region. So I have to target my flexibility training all the time, or else my hamstrings just lock right up again. So I have to be working on them constantly. That is a problem area for me. So I have to target my hamstrings specifically, but flexibility in general all the time, because that's just it's a bug in the model of Admiral Owen Swart 1.0. But those other three legs, cardio, resistance, and functional training, are also very important. And I would argue that finding a balanced approach for those three or four legs to your training system is optimal for a staff lead officer, because that is what they call a hybrid approach. That is how you're going to increase your physical capability in the most optimal way. But not all of us are going to find the same levels to be equally efficacious or equally satisfying. So you need to find for you what you feel like the right balance is. If you want to make cardio your primary focus and then do a little bit of resistance and functional training on the side, that's fine. If resistance training is the one that's most satisfying for you, and then you want to supplement that with some cardio and functional, or you want to focus primarily on your martial arts training and you're doing a little bit of cardio and resistance to support that, that's fine. As long as your approach, I would argue, includes all three, then I think you're on the right track to becoming a better version of yourself physically. But even if you have a well-structured workout profile, you're going to hit that stagnation point. You're going to hit a point where you're no longer making progress because you're no longer challenging yourself any further. Now, how do you then get past that? How do you get past that sort of roadblock? And they call it a plateau. How do you get past that plateau? How do you get further? How do you improve once you reach that point? Now, there are a number of approaches that help, and they all help. So consider all of them. So what we're doing when we are training physically is we are stimulating a physical response. So you push your muscles to the level where they are being physically challenged. It's going to, in a way, injure your muscles. You're going to start damaging your muscle fibers, which then forces your body to regenerate those muscle fibers and build them back stronger so that they can handle that challenge again next time. So your muscles are capable of stretching at a particular level. You push them to that level for just long enough that they start to break down. Not when they tear completely, that's catastrophic. We don't want that. They tear just a little bit, a few fibers here or there. Those fibers then have to knit back together, but now they're a little bit stronger, they're a little bit thicker, more rigid, and they can then handle that challenge next time. But if we keep lifting, for example, lifting a weight at that specific level for too long, all of the muscle fibers in that muscle are now going to have developed to the point where they can easily lift that weight. It's no longer a challenge. So we have to increase the challenge. How do we do that? We lift a heavier weight, we do more reps, we do more sets, we increase the volume. That's how we do that. And that is a process called progressive overload. Progressive overload is the practice of gradually increasing your resistance, reps, or intensity to keep improving. So let's use the park run example again. If you are quite comfortable walking a 55-minute 5K, it's time to start pushing yourself to the level of discomfort. Set a goal for yourself that 3 months from now, I want to be doing a sub 50. So when you're walking, you want to push yourself just a little bit more, get your heart rate just a little bit up, get your respiration just a little bit up, sweat a little bit. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for you. You'll notice that before too long, you're going to be able to hit that 50-minute target. Progressive overload. Without progressive overload, or even when you are trying to do progressive overload, you're still going to hit those plateaus. So your progress slows down over time. naturally due to various biological and neurological and even psychological factors. In the beginning, improvements come quickly because your body and mind are highly responsive to new stimuli. So when you're just beginning a new training program, you're going to find very quick results very easily because your body's never seen this kind of challenge before, and it's responding with maximal efforts in order to meet that challenge. But those gains are going to diminish over time. Gains is a term, again, we're talking about gaining in physical ability. So that can be gains in strength, gains in speed, gains in stamina, or gains in physical appearance. Those are all gains. You're improving your outcomes. That is a gain. So your gains will be high at first, and they will drop off relatively quickly. So what we call the law of diminishing returns. So when you first start training, your body is highly inefficient. It's not very efficient. So small changes will yield big results. But as you improve, your body adapts to the stress more efficiently. So it requires greater effort for smaller gains. So not only will your muscle fibers knit back stronger, but also the nerves that govern the muscles and even stuff that's happening in your brain will adjust itself so that it becomes easier and easier for you to lift that weight. You might not even be aware of it. In fact, you almost certainly won't be aware of it. But if you're doing something like a bicep curl with a certain weight, not only are the muscles improving in your arm to make that physically stronger, but your brain is rewiring itself such that you can find a more efficient way of making that motion so that you don't have to challenge your muscles as much. And it's adjusting your form. You probably wouldn't be able to see it even if you were looking in a mirror or somebody else was watching you without some kind of high precision AI tracking system. But your whole body is responding to that, not just your bicep. So over time, your so-called newbie gains, so those are the steep gains that you get when you begin a new program, they will start to fade, and each additional improvement requires more time and precision. So for example, if you're a beginner and you've just started a weightlifting program, you might gain 5 kilos of muscle in your first year of training. 5 kilos is quite a lot over a normal person's body, but then you may struggle to gain another kilo over the next year because now your body is used to it. And why does that happen? Well, because of homeostasis, and adaptation. So the human body is designed for efficiency, not for growth. It doesn't want to grow. You're fighting against your body's natural inclination towards being in a state of homeostasis where it's everything is stable, nothing has to change, everything is good, and you're providing challenges to force it to respond to that challenge. But all it wants to do is get into a new state of homeostasis. So you provide it with a challenge, and then it wants to increase its capabilities so that it can reach homeostasis again. It wants to be efficient. It wants to do things as efficiently as possible. So once an adaptation occurs, so you increase in strength or you increase endurance, the same stimulus no longer provokes change. So you keep lifting that same weight, eventually you're not going to evoke any change because now all the change that was going to happen has happened. So if you want to keep progressing, you have to increase the challenge. So progressive overload, which means increasing the weights, increasing the reps, increasing the duration or any other, whatever it is that you're working on. So if you run 5K at the same pace for months, it'll eventually stop improving your endurance. I already mentioned that. There's also the neuromuscular efficiency aspect of it. So early progress in strength training comes largely from your neuromuscular adaptation. Your brain learns to activate muscles more efficiently. So although you are tearing your muscle fibers, you're filling your muscle with lactic acid in response to that, it's your brain that's learning to activate the muscle in a particular way. Pardon me, I just need a sip. So as this process plateaus, further gains depend on actual muscle growth, which is much more difficult. It takes more time and more energy. That's easier to adapt the way that you activate the muscle than it is to actually build more muscle. So that's one of the reasons that's going to slow down. So for example, a beginner doing squats might increase rapidly. So you're increasing your weights rapidly with your squats at first because you're getting better technique, you're getting better at doing the exercise, and your muscle activation is more efficient. But at a certain point, you're just not going to gain any more strength. Also, the bigger you get, the fitter you get, your recovery demands are going to increase. So you have a heavier workload in your workout, and you need to recover for longer because you're spending more energy, you're doing more in your body, and your recovery load is going to get stronger and stronger. You need to spend more time recovering and more time training, which is a non-trivial temporal conundrum where you're going to find all be very motivated to get started because you want to get ready for beach season, or because you want to get ready for beach season, or your buddy is busy training and you want to train with your buddy. But that's not always going to be the case. Beach season will come and go, and now who feels equally strongly motivated heading into the middle of winter as they did heading into summer? Or maybe your training buddy has quit and he's left you alone at the gym. That's the thing that happens. So what do? How do you adjust to that? Your effort versus reward balance is going to change over time. So the gains that get smaller, it's going to be more difficult to motivate yourself to work so much harder to get less gains than you were getting before. And also there's just the lack of novelty. Humans are adapted to seek novelty. That's part of our neural architecture. And when something is the same, it's repetitive all the time, it can get boring. And if something is boring, it makes you want to not do it. And that's where engaging your anterior cingulate cortex is quite important. So how do we mitigate those issues? How do we solve those things? So what a lot of people do is they set new challenges and they track small wins and staying accountable to themselves. So you want to foster that commitment in yourself, make sure that you're going regardless, even if your gym buddy has left, even if it's not beach season coming up. And you want to be tracking your progress in a way that you can still maintain achievable goals as you progress. So shaving that first 5 minutes off your park run time is relatively easy. The next 5 minutes is going to be a lot harder. And the 5 minutes after that is going to be harder still. And eventually you're going to get to a point where you're happy to shave 30 seconds off your time, and then it's 10 seconds off your time. But as long as you are focusing on those goals and making those goals reasonable and achievable, then you can still use them to motivate yourself to keep going indefinitely. So how do you overcome that slowed progress? So that plateau, those diminishing returns. So one of the things you can do is increase the challenge. So that's progressive overload, right? That's how you do. So you adjust the intensity, you adjust the volume or the complexity to keep the body adapting. What a lot of people will do is they'll simply have 2 or 3 different workout routines and then switch between them. So you're doing one set of workouts for 6 weeks, and then you switch to a different set of workouts that are hitting those same muscle groups but are slightly different exercises. You're getting them from a different angle, you're getting them, engaging other muscle groups in the exercise, that kind of thing. You have 2 or 3 different workout routines which you can then switch between every few weeks, which helps to keep your muscles guessing, as it were. You're increasing that challenge by introducing novelty to the routine. And there's nothing wrong with adjusting those 3. Those don't have to be cast in stone. If you have an interest in it, you could be watching fitness influencers who might be suggesting new exercises, new ways of doing things, new ways of hitting muscle groups. It's a constantly evolving scientific discipline, so there's always new stuff to learn. And if you can be incorporating new information like that into your workout routine, you can help to increase your challenge consistently over time, or more or less consistently. You also want to be optimizing your recovery. So recovery is an essential component when it comes to physical challenge, because recovery, especially sleep time, but not only sleep time, is when most of your physical recovery happens. So you induce the challenge during your training session, you do the neuromuscular damage, you do the muscle damage, and it's while you're sleeping, especially, but not only sleeping, that the repair work happens. The neurological rewiring happens, the actual rebuilding of the muscle fiber happens mostly when you're sleeping. So if you can improve the duration of your sleep and the quality of your sleep, and there's a lot of literature on how to do that, that is highly beneficial. Then there's nutrition. Nutrition is so important. I completely underestimated the importance of nutrition for the first few years of my training program. Only really now am I starting to come to grips with the subtleties of the nutritional side of this kind of thing and just how important it is. Nutrition is very, very important. And if I'd understood earlier on just how important it was, I might have made some different decisions. And then there's also stress management. If you have high cortisol levels in your system, it's going to impede your recovery. It's also going to mess with your sleep, and it's going to mess with your motivation to manage your nutrition properly. So managing your lifestyle stress, while is not always reasonable and feasible, is something you want to be paying attention to. You want to find ways of minimizing your stress, or at least unnecessary stress, and dealing with only the stuff that's really important and really matters. Of course, becoming physically fit is going to help you to manage your stress. So that's a feedback loop, which is useful. But still, something to be mindful of, something to be aware of, is avoiding unnecessary emotional stress. It also helps to periodize your training. So you cycle between phases of intensity, recovery, and variation. So the variation aspect I already spoke about, where you have like 3 or 4 different workouts and you alternate between them. But maybe it's better you're not only changing that, you're also changing how intensively you work out. So maybe for 6 weeks, you're hitting the gym 5 days a week for 1 hour each. But then for 6 weeks after that, you're hitting the gym 3 days a week, but for 2 hours each. Or perhaps you are switching from just regular lazy moving free weights, and you're switching up and changing to something like high intensity interval training, or what's it, high rocks. High rocks is the new fad, something like that, which includes functional training, resistance training, and cardio in one very intense workout. Maybe you're trying that for 6 weeks. Keeping those things changing will help to stimulate that muscle growth and your gains over time. You also want to stay mentally engaged. So you want to be focusing and tracking this stuff as actively as possible. So although you do want a fair amount of it to be on autopilot so that you're not having to think about it and engage your anterior cingulate cortex every time, it is important to remain cognizant of what it is that you're doing so that you can be intelligently making decisions about how you want to adjust your program over time. So setting new goals, tracking your progress, seeking community support. Community support is quite important, not only from a social engagement point of view, but also because they can help provide you with insights and advice and information that could be beneficial to you. If you can go up to the biggest guy in the gym and ask him how he got that, he might not answer the question, but he might be happy to have a chat with you about your form or about your nutritional cycle or that kind of thing. He also might be willing to sell you some illegal supplements, but that's don't buy those. So the bottom line there is that progress naturally slows as your body becomes more efficient. But strategic adjustments in your training, recovery, and your mindset can help you moving forward. You either adapt or you plateau. Now, I mentioned nutrition, and I want to talk more about this. Now, I did a briefing video some time ago about energy tracking, and that's a lot of what I'm about to talk about here. So I'm just going to speed through it here quickly. If you want to know more about energy tracking, you can go back to that one. It was also a briefing. First thing you want to be doing is you want to be tracking what you eat. For a number of reasons. So the first thing you want to do is you want to be managing your kilojoule intake. What I mean tracking what you eat. Now, there are a number of ways you could do this. You can just write it on a piece of paper. That's one thing. I prefer using an app that helps to calculate things for me. The app I prefer to use is one called MyFitnessPal. I'm not sponsored by MyFitnessPal, but it's a good tool. I've been using it for years. I've also tried a similar app called LifeSum, which works in a very similar way. I've heard that other tools like Noom and Samsung Food also have similar tools, although those are not free, so I haven't tried them. But both MyFitnessPal and LifeSum have free modes that are quite useful. And what they allow you to do is keep a comprehensive and detailed diary of everything that you eat. Now, this in itself is a non-trivial thing that you have to develop in yourself. I spent a couple of months training myself on tracking my food before I even started paying attention to what food I was going to be eating. Just getting into the discipline of every time I eat something, I pull out my phone, open MyFitnessPal, and make a record of what I've eaten. What that initially forces you to do is to pay attention to everything that you put in your mouth. So whether it's a quick chocolate or a bag of chips or a cup of coffee or a bowl of cereal or 6 donuts, whatever it is, you log what it is, and you can keep track of a number of things. Firstly, you can track the number of kilojoules that is in your food. That is quite important. You want to be figuring out what your appropriate level for kilojoules is for the day. Now, MyFitnessPal can do some estimates on that. It'll tell you, oh, this is your maintenance level, this is your weight loss level, this is your bulking level. Don't listen to what MyFitnessPal says. Try it for yourself because it's making some guesses based on very little information. You need to be calibrating that on your own body. So use it for a while, try it for a bit. And if it says that 6,000 kilojoules per day is your maintenance level, try that and see if that works. If you still putting on weight after 2 weeks of trying it at 6,000 kilojoules, then you need to drop it below that. If you're losing weight at 6,000 kilojoules, then again, you know that that's not your maintenance level. So what the thing you need to know is what your maintenance level is. How many kilojoules do you consume a day that will keep you at your current weight, keep your weight stable? Then you can start messing with it depending on what your goals are. So if you want to put on weight, you increase your daily kilojoule limit. If you want to lose weight, you decrease your daily kilojoule limit. When it comes to weight management, it really is as simple as that. It's just physics, kilojoules in versus kilojoules out. It's as simple as that. But if you want to support a more comprehensive fitness regime, you need to be paying more attention than just that. The thing you need to be paying attention to then is your macronutrients. So this is protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Micronutrients are important too, but the big ones are fat, carbohydrates, and protein. If you are looking to build muscle mass, you need a lot of protein. So the current guidelines on this kind of thing is you want to be eating 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So my body weight is in the neighborhood of about 100 kilograms at the moment, which means that I should be eating around 200 grams of protein every day, which is more difficult than you might expect. You can then also adjust your fat requirements and your carbohydrate requirements depending on what your fitness outcomes are. Now, if you want to know more about what balance you should be working to strike, this is something that you're probably not going to be able to do out of your head. You're going to need some assistance with this. I can offer some hints and tips on this, but I do not have comprehensive information on establishing a proper nutritional balance. But I can tell you who has that. That is our EMH, the Emergency Medical Hologram, which is the AI medical bot here in Discord, is an expert when it comes to this kind of thing. You can present to the EMH and say, listen, I need to bulk up. I want to put on some muscle mass. This is my maintenance level kilojoule allowance per day. Please tell me what my macros should be. Please tell me what my total kilojoule level should be. And it will make suggestions. What you can also do, and I would recommend doing this actually, is take it to a couple of other AIs, because this stuff is basic maths. It's the kind of thing that AIs are pretty good at. If you take it to ChatGPT and DeepSeek, give it the exact same prompt and see what they come up with, you'll find that they'll come up with roughly the same amounts. You can then tweak the values depending on what you feel is right for you. You can input that into your MyFitnessPal, and then you can track your food as you go. Very, very important. The next aspect of nutrition comes to supplementation. So there is a lot of what they call bro science around supplementation when it comes to exercise, fitness supplements. There are, in terms of the scientific literature, really only 2 supplements, and these are over-the-counter, safe for consumption supplements that have a lot of scientific evidence backing them for their efficacy and their safety. And those are caffeine and creatine. Caffeine is easy to come by. You find it in your coffee. What does it do? It's a vasodilator, and it helps to improve your endurance and your alertness in the short term. So if you have 100 milligrams now, which is roughly what you'd find in a cup of instant coffee, that'll keep you going for a couple of hours. So if you have some just before your workout, that's not the worst thing, especially if you have a little bit of sugar in it, because that'll include some carbohydrates, which will give you that initial glucose boost. Then the caffeine will help you through the rest of the way, and then eventually it'll drop off. The other supplement there is creatine. Thing to notice with caffeine is that although it's very useful and it's generally very safe, there is a maximum safe dose per day. For an average sized human, you're looking at about 700 milligrams per day is the World Health Organization recommended maximum, which is 5 or 6 cups of coffee, depending on how strong those cups of coffee are, 2 or 3 energy drinks, a dozen or so cups of tea. You can look up the relative caffeine content of various beverages. Beverages are typically where you find caffeine, by the way. You're not going to find it in a lot of other food, except maybe chocolate, but it's in relatively small amounts. You can find out what your safe levels of caffeine are and how much caffeine you're consuming. So it's worth paying attention to that. Caffeine has not only short-term benefits, but has long-term benefits as well. It's also statistically associated with staving off symptoms of things like dementia long-term. So really not a bad thing, except if you're overdosing. If you're overdosing, you're going to put unnecessary strain on your heart and things like that. So keep your caffeine dose within reasonable levels, and it's going to actually help. So yes, the second one, creatine. Creatine is an interesting one. What it does is it breaks down to creatinine in your bloodstream, and it basically helps you to manage the flow of water into and out of your tissues. So that includes your muscles. It will help the water storage capacity in your muscles, and will also allow those muscles to expel that water more efficiently as needed. So what that means is it has a superficial beneficial effect, which is that it actually makes your muscle fibers swell a little bit. So it actually makes you look a little bit swole, is the term. Makes you look a little bit bigger than you actually are, because you retain water in your muscle fibers. But it also helps to improve your muscular endurance by 5 to 10%. Your results may vary. And it is very safe as long as, again, you maintain proper doses. There are a bunch of creatine products on the market which are nonsense. The one you're looking for is creatine monohydrate, which is usually just called creatine. You can find that at any pharmacy. It's safe for just about everybody. There is a small minority of people, 1 in about 100 people, who have an intolerance for creatine in large doses, which means that those people, although creatine is found in food, those people can quite easily metabolize the regular dosages of creatine found in normal food, but in the mega dosing, which is what you would take if you're supplementing it, they will have trouble breaking down that extra creatine, and that creatinine will build up in their bloodstream over time. And after a year or two, it'll start to cause damage to their liver and kidneys, which is not ideal. I am unfortunately one of those unfortunate people, but odds are you are not. If you're uncertain about it, you can go to your doctor and they can do a test and see if you are able to metabolize creatine the normal way, or if you are less efficient at metabolizing creatine, which would mean that you're one of the unfortunate people who cannot use creatine supplements. But you're probably fine. Again, with any of these kinds of things, if you're uncertain about any of it, go to your medical professional and ask for their advice. But generally speaking, creatine is a very safe and marginally effective supplement that is very useful. All of the other supplements that you'll find in the health and fitness aisle at your local Discam or Clicks is stuff that is either completely nonsense or stuff that has some scientific plausibility, like it's not crazy that it might work. There's just not a lot of evidentiary support for it. Try it if you want. Most of it's relatively safe. See if it helps you or not. Again, if you're uncertain about any of it, check with your doctor, but most of it is probably not of much use. And then, of course, there are the illegal supplements, which I would strongly advise you not to take. They're illegal for good reasons. They might massively improve your gains, but they are going to have long-term negative health consequences, which you almost certainly don't want to deal with. Next, I want to talk about progress methodologies. So there's a lot of talk about recomping versus bulk and cut cycling. And this is something that I've been focusing on myself in my own fitness journey recently. So what do they mean? So recomposition or recomp is a slow and steady muscle gain while losing fat. So the idea is that you try to keep your weight more or less constant. You adjust your kilojoule level so that you are losing body fat, but you are also training and consuming a lot of protein so that you are replacing that fat with muscle. Muscle is a lot denser than fat, so you're actually physically getting smaller, but you're getting stronger and your weight is remaining more or less stable. The other thing is the bulk cut cycle method, which focuses on mass gain followed by fat reduction. So what you do is you go through a bulk phase of a couple of months where you will increase your kilojoule intake so that you can support a lot of mass gain. You push really heavy during that time. You eat a lot of protein as well to support that muscle growth. Put on as much muscle mass as you can. You're also going to be putting on a lot of fat because you're going to be eating all those excess kilojoules. And then you go into a cut phase where you drop the amount of kilojoules that you're consuming to below your maintenance level. You adjust your workout routine accordingly. You go for more endurance stuff, more cardio, and then you will drop a lot of that excess fat. You'll also lose some of that muscle mass that you've gained during that time. But the idea is that if you keep doing the cycle, bulking and cutting, you will steadily, on average, increase your muscle mass, and then your cuts can become less severe over time. So those both sound like cool approaches. The problem is that when it comes to recomp, you're going to hit your wall of diminishing returns relatively quickly. So recomp works really well for people who are starting out. The first year or two that they're training, you're going to see some decent gains. You're going to be able to maintain that body weight relatively well. But you are going to hit a plateau where you are still making what they call technical gains, which is where you can measure that the amount of weight that you're lifting on the bench press is increasing over time, but you're not going to be making any visible gains. You're not going to be feeling much stronger, much healthier. You're not going to look any bigger in your clothes. Your gains are going to flatten out relatively quickly. And there's no way through continuing to recomp to upset that equilibrium. So recomp is a great way to start out. But after a year or two, once you see those gains start to flatten out, unfortunately, if you want to keep on making progress, you're going to have to switch to the bulk cut cycle. This is an approach specifically for people who want to put on muscle mass, so that's getting stronger or looking bigger. If you're an endurance athlete and you want to just run faster, that's probably not the right approach for you. But these are the two options that are available for people who are wanting to get a little bit bigger and stronger. But it's all about choosing the best method that works for your goals. So what about here on the Dauntless? How do we support these various fitness-related activities? Now, we, of course, have our fitness challenge. The way the fitness challenge works is we each have our own device, either a PerScan or a pad, which is by default recording all of our steps all the time. And we hook up into a system called StrideKick, which is a central leaderboard system that allows us to compare our respective steps together. Unfortunately, a lot of us are not able to do it automatically at the moment because StrideKick is broken, but hopefully they'll be getting up and running again properly very soon. So for the meantime, we have to do it manually. We have to copy the number of steps we've done each day from our own personal fitness application, Google Fit or Apple Fit or Samsung Health or whatever it is, and then type that number into StrideKick. But those of us that are fortunate enough to have a compatible system, it's just happening automatically. Then at the end of the month, the chief medical officer compares everybody's respective step counts, and then whoever has the most steps wins. Now, they're not talking about steps only, although steps is the default currency for measuring relative fitness activity. StrideKick also allows you to convert other activities. So if you spent an hour doing Pilates or an hour doing ballroom dancing, you can just select those activities from the list in StrideKick and you say, I did ballroom dancing for 1 hour, and then it will convert it into an equivalent number of steps that amount of activity converts into. So you get extra steps, as it were. So they're not actual steps, they're virtual steps, but you get the idea. So that is the way the fitness challenge works. We also have an annual competition happening with that as well. We do from time to time plug in our fitness challenge into other fitness challenges throughout Starfleet. So the Starfleet Medical runs their fleet-wide system, which requires that we have a regional assistant surgeon general to relay our points between us and them. We don't currently have one of those. So once we have a new assistant surgeon general here in Region 8, we'll be able to assist with that. But at least for now, we are logging our ship-based fitness challenge points all the time. We also have the gym channel here on Discord. So if you can't see the gym channel, you can do the thing where you go to project assignment, which is one of the channels near the top in the Discord, and you can choose physical training. You just click the appropriate emoji at the bottom of the screen. You will then have access to the gym channel under the medical category. And that is a place where, firstly, that's where we do the fitness challenge announcements, but it's also a place where we can share our respective fitness activity, where you can share your workout, whatever it is that you've been up to, and then the rest of us can congratulate you for it, or can ask you questions or offer you advice or whatever it is. And the EMH is also very active in there. He's got lots to say about everybody's workouts, which is great because that's what he's designed for. We also have, at least here in Tau Sector is what we call the Western Cape area, we have a weekly fitness-related mission where we go do parkrun, which I spoke extensively about. As a group, we go do parkrun. In fact, more often than not, we split up into 2 or even 3 different groups at 3 different parkrun venues, and we all do it at the same time, which is great. So that is the thing those are the things that we do in terms of supporting physical fitness here on the Dauntless. Oh, there's also the combat training challenge. So when we're talking about functional training, which is training with a specific physical goal in mind, we strongly recommend martial arts as being the optimal way of doing that. And if you are practicing martial arts, you can submit your martial arts training sessions not only to the gym channel because it counts as a workout, but also to the combat training challenge where you can earn points towards that monthly challenge as well. So those are the ways that you can get involved in fitness activity here on the Dauntless. Now it is time to look through the questions. Now I've clicked off the channel. Where are the questions? Here we go. Scrolling back up. I'm seeing some tags. That's good. All right at the beginning. Commander Shamali says, not dying from the heat is greater than appropriate uniform. Yes, I'm glad you appreciate that. There is, needs must. Things sometimes, practicality sometimes trumps professionalism, even though I hate to do that, but that's how it works. Commander Shamali says, if I don't go to the gym, I don't feel good. Motivation is a lie. I don't do anything because I'm motivated to. I do it because either it's fun or I must do it or it has to be done. Well, that's a good approach. And I feel the same way. I haven't always felt the same way. Like I said, at the beginning, I needed to motivate myself to do the gym because I hated it. I didn't like it. I wasn't yet fit enough to notice how much better it was making me feel. It took me some time to get to the point where if I didn't go to the gym that day, then I felt bad afterwards, like physically cuck. Like I didn't enjoy the rest of the day if I had to skip the gym, which is where I am now. If I miss my workout or two workouts in a row, then I feel miserable. I get all achy and stiff, and I can feel in my body that I haven't trained recently. But at the beginning, I wasn't there yet, and I needed something else to get me there. So I'm glad that you and I are on the same page as that now. All right, let's see. Next up. Master Chief Kotze. Question. What is your opinion regarding the genetic testing to determine optimal behavior development for health and fitness? I have seen some, look, I haven't looked into that in extensive detail, but I have heard some people talking about that kind of thing. So there are a number of services that offer DNA profiling at various levels of scrutiny, various levels of resolution, and with various levels of reliability of results. But there are genetic markers that can point you to a specific kind of physical activity. For example, you might be genetically predisposed to having an easier time doing endurance running as opposed to weightlifting, as opposed to explosive power sports like shot put or javelin. And I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world to get that information about yourself so that you know which kinds of activities you might be find it easier to excel at. I think that's a great idea. Like I said, I'm not sure how well supported that data is, but it's not crazy. And if you feel like running that experiment on yourself, I don't think that's a terrible idea. Commander Shamali, there are 225 active parkrun locations in South Africa. Yes, yeah, that sounds about right. It's very widespread. You can just about anywhere where you're traveling in the country, you're almost never more than an hour's drive from your nearest parkrun. It's very big here. It's very big in the UK. There are some in the US and a few other European countries. So pretty much the West, you'll find parkrun just about anywhere you go. Let's see. Okay, looks like that is all of the questions. So that is fantastic. Right, so in conclusion, let me summarize the key takeaways from today's briefing. So first of all, mission readiness is about becoming the best version of yourself. Physical fitness is a tool for personal growth, not just for aesthetics, but it's good for aesthetics too. And becoming aesthetically better than your previous self is also a worthwhile goal. And frankly, if that's a way that you can use to motivate yourself to get physically fit, that's not terrible either. But progress, which is the opposite of backsliding, progress is a result of consistency, intelligent training, and proper nutrition. Those three things together are inseparable. They're very, very important. All right, so let us conclude by saying, you don't need to be the best, just better than you were yesterday. Growth isn't about competition with others, but about striving towards excellence one step at a time. A Starfleet officer prepares for every mission, and the most important one is the mission of self-improvement. Thank you. That is all for today. You are dismissed. Swart out.
The Starfleet life with the USS Dolphus. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes